The United States was at a boiling point. The past year had been a tumultuous one, marked by protests, headlines about systemic injustice, and fierce national debates about race, privilege, and inequality. Tensions simmered in homes, workplaces, and public spaces, threatening to boil over at any moment. Amidst this backdrop of societal unrest, personal interactions often carried the weight of these larger issues, revealing fractures in seemingly ordinary moments. For Vanessa Carter, a black flight attendant with over a decade of experience, this tension was a part of her daily reality. Born and raised in Brooklyn, Vanessa had grown up acutely aware of the systemic inequities that shaped her community. Yet, she had persevered, becoming a skilled professional in the demanding world of air travel. While her job brought challenges, Vanessa loved the sense of freedom it gave her, crisscrossing the skies, meeting people from all walks of life, and excelling in a role that required poise and precision. But Vanessa was no stranger to the subtle, and sometimes overt prejudice that often tainted her experiences. As a flight attendant, she regularly navigated the divide between economy and first-class passengers, balancing impeccable service with the personal dignity she refused to compromise. She had handled condescending comments and dismissive attitudes with grace, knowing that professionalism was her shield in a world that often tried to diminish her. However, nothing could have prepared her for what unfolded aboard Flight 1482. It was a Friday evening, and Flight 1482 was a full house, flying from Los Angeles to New York. Vanessa stood in the galley, preparing for the service rounds. The first-class cabin shimmered with luxury, plush seats, champagne glasses clinking softly, and passengers engrossed in conversations about business deals and vacations. Behind the curtain, the hum of economy class presented a stark contrast, with cramped rows and the familiar crinkle of snack bags. Vanessa adjusted her uniform and stepped into the aisle. She greeted passengers with a warm smile, her polished demeanor a testament to her years of experience. Among the first-class passengers was Miranda Stokes, a middle-aged white woman draped in an expensive designer dress and an air of entitlement. From the moment Vanessa approached her seat, she could feel the woman's icy gaze. "Ma'am, would you like a drink refill?" Vanessa asked, her tone polite and professional. Miranda didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced at Vanessa as though she were inspecting a minor inconvenience. Her lips curled into a slight sneer. "I didn't ask for you," Miranda said, her voice sharp. "Where's the other girl?" Vanessa felt the familiar sting of prejudice in the woman's tone. She remained composed, masking her discomfort. "I'll be assisting you today," she replied calmly. "Is there something I can get for you?" Instead of responding, Miranda's demeanor turned hostile. Without warning, she grabbed Vanessa's wrist, her nails digging painfully into her skin. "You people," Miranda hissed, her voice dripping with contempt. "You should know your place." The venom in Miranda's words sent a chill down Vanessa's spine. A few passengers nearby turned their heads, their expressions a mix of curiosity and unease. Vanessa gently but firmly pulled her arm away. "Ma'am, please release me," she said, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "If you need assistance, I am happy to help." But Miranda's rage escalated. Before anyone could react, she lunged forward and bit Vanessa's arm, her teeth sinking into her skin with shocking force. Vanessa yelped in pain, stumbling back as blood began to seep through her uniform. Gasps filled the cabin as passengers scrambled to understand what had just happened. The scene erupted into chaos. Passengers stood in their seats, some filming the incident with their phones, while others shouted in disbelief. A flight attendant rushed to Vanessa's side, pressing a napkin to her bleeding arm. Two men seated nearby moved quickly to restrain Miranda, who continued her tirade unabated. "You people don't belong here," Miranda screamed, her face twisted with fury. "This is our space. You're nothing but a servant." Vanessa clutched her arm, trying to steady her breathing as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. She had dealt with difficult passengers before, but this was different. This was an attack fueled by hatred, and it had left her physically and emotionally shaken. The flight crew made the swift decision to divert the plane to Chicago for an emergency landing. The pilot announced the change, his voice calm but urgent. Meanwhile, the cabin crew worked to maintain order, comforting Vanessa and calming distressed passengers. Miranda, now restrained by passengers and crew, continued to hurl insults, her entitlement undiminished even as she faced the consequences of her actions. When Flight 1482 touched down at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, the tension inside the cabin was palpable. The usual chorus of seatbelts clicking and passengers shuffling their belongings was replaced by an uneasy silence, broken only by whispered conversations and the hum of the engines powering down. Vanessa Carter sat in the galley with an ice pack on her injured arm, her colleagues surrounding her with quiet concern. She had done her best to maintain composure during the chaos, but the gravity of what had occurred began to sink in. Outside the aircraft, law enforcement and airport security waited in formation, prepared for what they had been briefed on: an unruly passenger accused of assault. As the doors opened, Miranda Stokes was escorted off the plane in handcuffs, still muttering incoherent justifications for her behavior. Her designer dress, which had once exuded an air of sophistication, now hung awkwardly as she was led away, her entitlement overshadowed by the seriousness of her actions. Passengers watched in stunned silence, some capturing the moment on their phones. The murmurs grew louder as people tried to process what they had just witnessed. Vanessa, now accompanied by paramedics, exited next. The sight of her bandaged arm was met with nods of support, murmurs of encouragement, and even quiet applause from a few passengers who admired her strength. Vanessa's heart was heavy as she stepped into the ambulance. She had faced her fair share of difficult passengers in her 12 years as a flight attendant, but this was unlike anything she had ever experienced. This wasn't just an attack on her person, it was an attack on her dignity and humanity. As the ambulance sped toward the hospital, she made a silent vow to herself. She would not let this incident be swept under the rug. By the time Vanessa arrived at the hospital, videos of the incident had already begun circulating on social media. Passengers who had recorded the altercation posted clips with captions like, "Shocking racism on Flight 1482, and we stand with Vanessa." Within hours, the footage went viral. News outlets picked up the story, and hashtags like, "Nya Justice for Vanessa" and "Nasser Zero Tolerance for Racism" dominated trending lists. The video painted a damning picture. Miranda's venomous words, her physical assault, and the flight crew's swift intervention were all laid bare for millions to see. The shocking nature of the attack struck a nerve across the country, especially as it came at a time when the national conversation about race and privilege was already at a fever pitch. Major news networks aired interviews with passengers who had witnessed the incident. One man, still visibly shaken, recounted, "I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This wasn't just rude behavior, it was pure hatred." Vanessa handled herself with such grace, even in the face of such cruelty. The airline issued a statement condemning Miranda's actions and expressing support for Vanessa, but the public demanded more. Protests erupted outside the airline's headquarters, with demonstrators calling for stronger protections for airline staff and passengers against racist and violent behavior. Advocacy groups used the incident as a rallying cry, urging the airline industry to adopt zero-tolerance policies for such acts. Miranda, meanwhile, faced mounting legal and public pressure. Charged with assault and a hate crime, she became the face of unchecked privilege and entitlement. Her lawyers' attempts to downplay the incident were met with widespread backlash, as people from all walks of life rallied around Vanessa's story. The incident aboard Flight 1482 became a watershed moment, sparking a broader movement for change in the airline industry and beyond. Advocacy groups and civil rights organizations seized the moment to demand reforms, including mandatory anti-bias training for airline staff, stricter penalties for abusive passengers, and better support systems for employees who faced harassment. Airlines across the country scrambled to address the public outcry. Some announced new policies to empower flight crews to handle abusive passengers, while others pledged to review their training programs. However, many activists argued that these measures, while a step in the right direction, didn't address the root causes of the problem. Vanessa herself became a leading voice in the fight for change. Despite the emotional toll of the incident, she chose to speak out, sharing her story in interviews and public appearances. "This isn't just about one flight or one passenger," she said during a televised interview. "It's about a system that allows people to believe they can treat others as less than human because of their race or their job title. We need to change that system." Her words resonated deeply, sparking a nationwide conversation about the intersections of race, class, and privilege. Vanessa worked closely with advocacy groups, lending her voice to campaigns aimed at promoting equity and accountability in the workplace. For Vanessa, the journey didn't end with the legal proceedings or the public outcry. The incident aboard Flight 1482 became a defining moment in her life, a moment that transformed her pain into purpose. She partnered with organizations to launch initiatives that supported flight attendants and other service workers who faced discrimination and harassment. Her advocacy extended beyond the airline industry, addressing systemic issues that marginalized communities faced across various sectors. Vanessa's courage and resilience inspired countless others. Letters and messages poured in from people who saw themselves in her story, workers who had been mistreated, individuals who had endured prejudice, and allies who wanted to stand in solidarity. Vanessa made it a point to read every letter, finding strength in the words of encouragement and shared experiences. Her work didn't go unnoticed. Vanessa was invited to speak at conferences, join panels on diversity and inclusion, and consult with companies looking to improve their workplace cultures. Her voice, once confined to the aisles of an airplane, now echoed in boardrooms and legislative chambers. As for Miranda, her name became synonymous with the consequences of unchecked privilege. The court's decision to convict her on charges of assault and a hate crime sent a strong message. Actions fueled by hatred and entitlement would not be tolerated. While Miranda's life unraveled, Vanessa's flourished, built on a foundation of resilience and purpose. Vanessa's story is a powerful reminder that even in moments of darkness, courage and resilience can light the way forward. Her strength in the face of hatred not only brought justice but also sparked meaningful conversations about the changes we need to create a more equitable and just society. What would you have done if you were in Vanessa's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge the status quo and inspire us all to stand up for what is right. Together, we can build a world where dignity and respect are universal.